we better be his friend now before he blows. They are there because of the solution you can provide at the moment. Even witches don't practice witchcraft alone.
How should he go about it, given that there are times where people come into the work with their own perspectives as to how this thing should be?
If you're going to bring correction, don't bring correction in the secret.
What would you advise would be the first line of action for an individual who is called to ministry, but he knows he's called to serve under another ministry?
You serve. Ministry is something that happens to you, not something you happen to.
What would you advise that a pastor now, a young pastor struggling with prayer, how would you advise they go? You had a business in another state, you had to move. So what do you do to be able to manage your business, your finances, your personal life, your marital life, and also in terms of the ministry?
Unfortunately, you can also be a pastor and not be wise. Part of your job is not to be nice. God is not going to judge me based on who came or who left.
I would like you to tell us a little about how the Remnant Christian Network in Anambra State started.
So we were praying in uncompleted building for 2 years. I left the city entirely.
And do I manage the work? And how do I manage myself?
So there is no structure that runs the system. And some pastors copy systems and have no idea of structure.
Welcome to another episode of the Young Ministers Wisdom Series, and today we have the honor of having with us God's servant, the lead pastor of the Remnant Christian Network in Awka, Anambra State. We have God's servant, Reverend Pascal Chukwudi. Thank you so much for the opportunity, the privilege of having you on this show, sir. We believe that there are lots of people that will be blessed from the well of wisdom that we would receive from today, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pastor Ernest. It's my privilege to be here. My name is Pascal Chukwudi, the point man of Remnant Christian Network, a ministry pioneered by the vision that God gave to our father in the Lord, Apostle Arome Osai, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, so we'll move in right away to the questions that we have. Questions that young ministers are likely to ask people that are about to start the church work, the work of ministry, starting a church from scratch. So what would you advise? Maybe let's start from the basics. What would you advise would be the first line of action for an individual who is called to ministry, but he knows he's called to serve under another ministry? For like what you do, you serve under Apostle Arome as a point man. How should the person go about confirming what ministry they are to serve under? How should the person go about that process of submission and starting, and what should be their expectations?
I hope it will not be bad if I begin my answers with a disclaimer, yes, trying to let everyone that is going to be listening to me to know that my experience might not be everybody's experience, my exposure might not be everybody's exposure, the access I have might not be everybody's access. As a result, I also want us to understand that ministry is a thing of conviction, right? Ministry is not a career, it is a call. And if it's a call, it's on the basis of deep convictions. So if we want to look at the matter of a young person like me, hoping to start out, maybe hoping to serve under a certain ministry, well, it's not so difficult to decide where to start. The reason is because the expectation is that the ministry you were intending to serve under is a ministry you were already providing service, right? If truly you are submitted to a man, if truly you are following a man, one of the things that we should expect is that you have been there, you have been following, you have been serving, you worked with them through certain levels of processing, and then to the place where they are currently. So it's not a thing of you just wake up and look for a ministry that seems to be doing well and you want to attach yourself to them. No, that's not how it is done. So it's expected that over time, you should have been serving, maybe as an usher, maybe as a church cleaner, maybe as a brother in the choir. And eventually, God is leading you deeper into a more serious kind of ministry. Anybody you are serving under and you want to make this transition, I believe to an extent has an understanding of your call, have seen you grow in the ranks over the time, and then it won't be a difficult task to just extend the right hand of fellowship to bring you fully into the ministry. So the goal is that you begin with service, right? You don't see the person as a vehicle going your direction. No, you serve, you serve, you serve, and then gradually the transitions can happen. And I'm not saying this so that you start out looking for where to serve with an intention in mind. Ministry is something that happens to you, not something you happen to. If you are gradually serving, submitted, eventually the transitions will come. All the apostles we find in the Bible did not start out at the level where they were as apostles. Some of them started by following Jesus, doing many things, following him around, trying to, assist here and there. And you will see in the book of Acts of Apostles where the Bible will say that certain prophets and teachers were fasting and praying, and the Holy Ghost said, separate unto me Paul and Barnabas for the work I have for them. This is how ministry comes. It's not something you start out of ambition. It is something that is a product of service. So the next level of your ministry, the next level of your assignment is always a product of the previous assignment that you were already undertaking. So you want to serve under a ministry, you believe you are called to be with this person, go there and serve. Go there and take on a job role that you are not paid for. Maybe as an usher, take on a job role that you are not paid for. Maybe as a church cleaner, take up a job role that you are not paid for. Maybe in the media department. And with time, the grace of God in your life will be clearly identified, and you will be making the necessary transitions with time.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very short and very heavy. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So, sir, I want to ask, there are believers that have gone to a certain level, but the way they grew, they did not have the privilege of close mentorship, as it were. Maybe they got passionate, they listened to lots of preachers, lots of messages, and they've come to a point in their life where they cannot point someone that has particular oversight over them as a spiritual father. How would such a person identify, how should such a person go about identifying his spiritual authority, primary spiritual authority, sir?
It's all right. I started out by saying that a bulk of the things that happen in ministry is first by conviction.
Yes, sir.
Right? There are no hard and fast rules on how to identify a spiritual father. You will not even I don't think you will find that anywhere, right? But that doesn't mean the Bible didn't say some things about fatherhood. The Bible spoke clearly about fatherhood. And if you listen to the writings of Paul, there are a few other things you can infer, right? Maybe not clearly stated, but you can infer. You will hear the apostle saying something like, I give birth to you in the gospel. And this is a profound truth, because whoever you are going to be submitting to as a father, to an extent, should be that person that has given you an eye view, a perception, a mindset about what the gospel, what the assignment, what the call is, right? He might not be the first person, but maybe in the process of time, you eventually locate that person. So this happens, right? I understand the dilemma where this person has found himself. Meanwhile, in my case, I think I had a similar experience. When I say similar experience, I mean I was from a certain background, Christian background, which does not align with what I'm doing now. And I was in that background, got to know God, received Jesus in my heart, became passionate about God, and I was looking for every spiritual material that could give me, the necessary guide that I needed for my growth. So I would say at some point in my life, I had many mentors. Even now, I still have many mentors. And I was under the tutelage of those mentors, drinking from here, drinking from there, drinking from there for a while, until one day, somebody gave me the messages of my father in the Lord, Apostle Adullam, just in 1 gig MP3 format. I remember playing those sermons, those days of MP3, that people just buy this little MP3. So I remember listening to some of those sermons, and it made a different sense to me. Not like it was so different from what every other person was saying, but there's a deeper dimension to it. It brought me deeper into understanding, brought me deeper into what the gospel truly means. And in the process of listening, I felt like myself started being exposed to me. I started finding my foot, I started finding myself. And I couldn't stop. The more I listened, the more I listened. The more I listened, the more I listened. And I've been on that path from that time. This was in my university days until today, and I've not stopped listening. From what I just said, it is clear what my convictions are. It is clear who gave me the guide I needed, who gave me that perspective. I needed. That is not to say that I don't have mentors. I still have a few of them. But with this, it was the conviction I needed for ministry. I don't want to go a little supernatural about it, because I've also had people that will say, the man of God appeared in my dream, he poured oil on me, an angel told me. I'm not saying those things do not happen. I'm trying to just make it as basic as possible, something every believer can relate with. So it's primarily a thing of conviction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Primarily a thing of conviction. Okay. So I would want to ask, sir, there are lots of passionate young people that have started works, networks, and all of that, but may still have a struggle with their prayer life, personal prayer life. What would you advise that a pastor now, a young pastor struggling with prayer, how would you advise they go about it? Consistent prayer.
I have a general answer for how any believer can deal with the problem of not having a solid prayer life, but it's a little different in the question, because this is no longer the regular believer. This is a pastor, and of course I don't have these expectations, especially when somebody has started a work already. I think the challenges of the work should be so overwhelming that you don't have a choice than to pray, than to have a prayer life. I don't know what choices you have, but let me still attempt to answer like I will advise every believer. You know, we hear these kind of things a lot. First is to have a consistent prayer life. It's easy. Very easy. There is a way to go about it. There is something called raising a prayer altar, right? An altar is an altar because of four things. An altar is an altar because of sacrifice. An altar, especially a prayer altar. An altar is an altar because of the consistency. An altar is an altar because of the dedication, maybe time dedication you give to it. And then an altar is an altar because of the place dedication. If you check out prayers in the Bible and how people that had a steady prayer life did it, you will see something like in Acts of Apostles chapter 3, where the Bible will talk about the hour of prayer.
Yeah.
It means a person that should have a strong prayer life should have a moment, a time of prayer. You don't say, I pray anytime. Of course, we all pray every time, right? Just like the Bible will say, pray without ceasing. We carry that consciousness of God, that consciousness of prayers, you know, as we move around. But this person is expected to first get a prayer time, right? If you get a prayer time, it will go a long way. Say 12 midnight, say 3 a.m., say 6 a.m., say 5 p.m. in the evening. I'm not a fan of trying to make it very difficult for you, trying to put it at a time where you know you have been struggling to keep up with it. Let's say somebody says it must be by 2 a.m. and you return from work, say 10, and maybe have to sleep by 12, and then you insist you must stand up by 2 to pray for another 2 hours to go back to work by 6 or by 7, right? I'm not a fan of it must be at an inconvenient time. Right. Get a time that works for you. It could be break time in the office, 1 hour, 30 minutes, right? It could be in the evening. Maybe you close from work by 4 and then there is a field around you. You go there for an hour or 30 minutes, as the case may be. I think one of the problems is that people have a way of trying to fix prayer time when they have realized it is nearly impossible for them, right? So you don't start from up to build. You start from down to build. Yeah. So if you start from a place that it seems to be okay for you, a timing that seems to be okay for you, gradually you will see the need to, or you receive the grace to even push into times that normally are not comfortable for you, right? That's the first thing. So there must be a prayer time. The second thing is that you don't have a prayer life until you also have a prayer place. If you have a prayer time, get a prayer place. That helps too. So they were going to the temple at the hour of prayer. So they had the hour of prayer and they had the location of prayer. They were not just going to pray anywhere, right? They know that by this time I'm here. By that time I'm there. By this other time I'm here. It becomes part of their life, right? And prayer place is very important. Somebody might even say, I'm working from home. Let there be a place in that home where you know this is where I separate myself to pray. Let there be a part of that house, you know, maybe my sitting room. You can even identify a particular chair and say, this is my chair. You can identify a particular spot in your room and say, this is my spot. If you're not the kind of person that paces when you pray, right? If you start doing that, we even notice that even if you're the kind of person that paces, there is a certain line where you want to pace that has become part of you. So a prayer place is important, right? You get a prayer time, you get a prayer place. Number 3 is that you make it consistent. Make the prayer time and the prayer place consistent. That is where sacrifice comes in prayers. The reason is because there will always be a reason why you will not be there. No matter how convenient it is, there will always be a reason why you will not be there. Maybe your friend comes in the evening. Maybe your neighbor calls. Maybe there is a meeting somewhere. Maybe there is something somewhere. All those things are worthy sacrifices you have to put on the table just so that you can meet up with your prayer schedule. Very important. If you don't do that, it means you don't have an intention to have a prayer life. Consistency is sacrifice. Consistency is not convenient, right? And then the 4th thing about a prayer altar, I think I mentioned it while I was starting. I talked about prayer place, prayer time, sacrifice. And then it's important you get your own personal disciplines. It's as simple as that. Nobody opens your mouth to pray. You are tired, you have to study it out. You are weak, you have to study it out. Finally, which is something, which is where the spiritual side comes in now, finally. My Father and the Lord will quote from the book of Psalms, where the Bible says, quicken us and we'll call upon you, right? If you are not quickened, it's difficult, right? Somebody must learn to be in that place where you are telling the Holy Spirit, I have to pray, help me. You are telling yourself, I know the Spirit that can assist men to pray. I know the Spirit that quickens. I'm interacting with that Spirit that quickens. If the Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in my body, it quickens my mortal body. You keep insisting on it, and then you start seeing the results. That's the supernatural side of it. Don't forget I said, I'm trying to make it as practical as possible so that every believer, can relate with these truths. But this is it majorly. But for a young minister, you already have enough challenges to keep you praying. If you don't have, we can borrow you some, right?
All right. Thank you so much, sir. That was really helpful. Yeah. I want to add to this question. Yeah. If someone has tried this, tried to have a prayer place, a prayer time, try to discipline themselves to do it and to keep to it, but they never successfully keep to it for 3 months. Yeah. Is there something that can be done?
Yes, there is something that can be done. The person needs a prayer team.
Okay.
You need a prayer team. At this level, I'm bringing this because we're talking to a pastor here, yes, right? If he's a normal believer, one of the 6th points I was going to raise is that you need a prayer team. There should be people you are praying with. You should be part of a community of intercessors. Everybody should be part of a community of intercessors. Even witches don't practice witchcraft alone. They will not be good at witchcraft if they are trying to do it alone, except they have attained mastery. They need a coven. They need a place where they gather. They need a place, maybe they meet every night, maybe they know how they meet. I've not been a witch before, right? but however they meet, they have to be there consistently. The thing about having a team that you are part of to pray is that iron will sharpen iron in the process, right? You are going to receive grace. There is this intermingling that happens in fellowship where people's strength is exchanged for weakness, where other people's strengths can, by extension, start becoming your strength, even though it was your weakness before. This is something the person needs to do. I think every believer should be part of a prayer community, a community that has a solid prayer culture. Usually, when we start having issues of I can't pray alone, is when that person have not been in that community long enough to catch the flames. Is if you keep a group of wood burning together, most likely they will keep burning and they'll be burning well. But if you separate one, it won't be long. That one that was separated will stop burning. True. Right? That's how these things work. If somebody had tried the previous style and it's not working, no, the person needs a prayer community.
Okay.
Do you know a prayer community is so potent that even somebody that doesn't speak in tongues can be in a prayer community for a while and get baptized in the Holy Spirit and be speaking in tongues without having to be laid hands on?
True.
Right? Is that potent? A lot can happen with a prayer community.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that does the magic. Yeah. I'd like to ask, how should a pioneer build certain foundation? He has a painted image on his heart, cast before his face by the Lord, as to the sort and the quality of people that he should raise, that should now influence the sort of culture that he walks into the work. Now, how should he go about it, given that there are times where people come into the work with their own perspective, perspectives as to how this thing should be. People come with people have access to the internet. They see all they see, and they all try to more often than not bring in what they think is good into what is being built. So how should a pastor respond to that when he intends to build and work a culture into the work?
The question you are asking is a question of wisdom, right? Because this is
Yes.
we're looking for wisdom solutions right
Yes.
now in how to run ministry. Let me start by saying this, that every ministry is not exactly the same.
True.
We should have known by now. In fact, it will amaze you to know that even children given birth to by the same parents are not the same. People can have strengths in different areas. That doesn't mean they are not part of the family or part of the community. The same thing happens when you are even part of a church, you are part of a ministry, right? You can notice the uniqueness you have, the abilities you have, and sometimes in a bid to discharge your duties, there might be need for that uniqueness to be seen in the assignment or in what you are doing. I think the question now is, when what somebody claims to be uniqueness does not align with the corporate goal of the person that God has given the vision to.
Yeah.
I understand that's
Yes,
where we're going with this question.
Yes, sir.
So, and that takes us to wisdom solutions that you need in building ministry. The message of Jesus to the 7 churches in the book of Revelation were not the same.
True.
Yes, every church seemed to have a specific message. Every church seemed to have a specific problem. What he said to the church in Laodicea was not what he said to the church in Pergamos, in Philadelphia. So it was the same Jesus speaking to the angel of the churches, but bringing different emphasis to those angels of the churches.
Yeah.
Meaning that the angel of the church where you are has a clear emphasis on what God is asking him to do. Whatever you are going to be bringing to the table should be something that clearly aligns with the assignment of the angel of that church. And in case you find people who consistently, outrightly borrows ideas, I'm not saying borrowing ideas is bad, but borrows ideas that conflicts with what God is telling you. Because if you read the Bible, in the case of Esau and Jacob, when they got to their father to be blessed, that is Isaac, you remember that Isaac asked for what he called venison. Right? And if I understood that clearly, it means that he should prepare something with a meat that is not in the house. There were meats in the house because the meat he later ate was in the house. But what he was looking for was something that was not at home. He wanted something wild. That's what happens when sometimes your pastor or your leader, the point man or the visionary person there, is trying to say, let's get external ideas. That happens in ministry, right? Where a father sits and then he's looking for what he's not used to. He's looking for something else. He wants this soup to be prepared a certain way or a different way. And he calls that venison because he told the son Esau to go into the wild. Meanwhile, the person that eventually cooked from something that is at home. He didn't have to go into the wild, right? So it also happens. Like I said, I'm trying to draw this line because the challenge is usually when they bring something strange, right? It is simple. I don't think it's very difficult to deal with. It's a wisdom solution. Everybody is different. People accept corrections differently. There are people that truly God has sent to you to work with you, but they're in their crude state. They have not been refined. They have not been trained. They have not been, brought to the vision fully. They have not come, how Paul will say, not just the truth, but into the knowledge of the truth, into the knowledge of the vision, right? Because people can come to the truth, but others are yet to come into the knowledge of the truth. The Bible says ever learning, but never coming to the knowledge of the truth. So those kind of people, the way to deal with them is different. This is true, depending on their level of acceptance, depending on how they respond to issues, depending on how they take correction, depending on how they understand things. People are different. That's one. Number two is that if there is need to correct in ministry, right, to present your position about a matter, don't do it in isolation. If you're going to bring correction, don't bring correction in the secret. Call everybody together. Well, this is what happened. I'm not comfortable with this. And I'm not trying to talk down on this, my friend, but I wouldn't want this to repeat. This is why I'm saying it openly, so that everybody can know my position on this matter. You will not always have that time to always go one at a time, personal for everybody. Sometimes it's better to make that collective correction. The Bible calls it open rebuke, right? But it also has to be done with wisdom. The other part of it, where I started, was where I said it depends on the person now. If it is somebody that does not accept corrections, You don't have a lot to do with the person, right? I believe a leader knows what to do with those kind of people, right? Because there are people that don't, they don't, right?
Exactly.
If it is somebody that accepts corrections, but maybe is having a problem with understanding, some people are slow learners. They don't get it at first. You might have to keep repeating and repeating and repeating until they now get it. You also have a different approach to those people. Let me say this before I stop, and this is really, really important. As a minister, right? You need all these kind of people. There are people that have a solution-oriented mindset towards you. They are there because of the solution you can provide at the moment. In fact, almost everybody comes on the basis of solution orientation, right? This guy, he can prophesy. This guy, he's a sound teacher of the word. This guy is this. He has answer to my problem, and then they come. Most likely, you are going to solve their problem. But solving their problem does not mean sending them away. They have to be inducted into the work, and they start out from that place. There are these other people that have a destination-based mindset. They see that, wow, the way Reverend Pascal is going, he's going to go far. We better be his friend now before he blows, right? Those ones are destination-oriented people, right? They will even do everything. If you say sit, they sit. If you say stand, they stand. If you say jump, they jump. Get your group. The important thing for them is the destination, right? It's just like you are going to a particular location in Abuja or in Lagos, and then there is a car going your way. You just flag the person down and you perch on that vehicle. When you get to your location, you continue moving. In fact, even if you don't get to the location and the car parks on the road, you just come down and look for another one. Right? You are not interested in trying to help to fix the car or to assist. You are just there for the meantime, right? There are people that see you as a vehicle, right? But there are these other people that sees you from a covenant perspective.